From Lagos, Nigeria, this is News Central. I'm Felicity Ezewike. The top stories tonight. Following rowdy session, Senate reverses decision to approve electronic transmission of election results. U.S. adds 18 more Nigerians to deportation roll, bringing total number marked for removal to 97 over alleged immigration offenses. Protests erupt in New Delhi as Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is named in documents linked to Jeffrey Epstein files.
In business, Bengasin confirms Port Harcourt refinery rehabilitation is about 90% ready and could return to operation within 1 week.
And in sports, the countdown continues to the second Niger Delta Games as the torch arrives in Uyo on the second leg of its 9-state tour ahead of the opening ceremony. Details later.
Welcome. Tonight begins now. A major breakthrough in the Senate on election reform has sparked fresh controversy after lawmakers dropped crucial real-time requirement for transmitting election results. During Tuesday's emergency sitting, Borno lawmaker Tahiru Mungunu moved to rescind a previous decision that used the vague term transfer, replacing it with a mandate for presiding officers to electronically transmit results to the IRF portal. However, while the amendment to Clause 60, subsection 3 formally endorses electronic transmission, it does not require it to happen in real time. The Senate also appointed a 12-member conference committee chaired by Plateau lawmaker Simon Lalong to reconcile differences between its version of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill and that of the House of Representatives.
The presiding officer shall electronically transmit the results from each polling unit to IREP portal, and such transmission shall be done after the prescribed Form ECHA has been signed and stamped by the presiding officer and or countersigned by the candidates or polling agents where available at the polling unit. Provided that if the electronic transmission of the result fails as a result of communication failure and it becomes impossible to transmit the result contained in Form ECHA, signed and stamped by the presiding officer and or countersigned by the candidates or polling agents where available at the polling unit, the Form ECHA shall, in such a case, be the primary source of correlation and declaration of results.
My point of order is Order 72, Mr. President. I'm still standing on my point of order. Order, please.
I believe that if you're able to conclude within the next few days or 1 week, the president should be able to sign this amended electoral bill into an act of parliament within this month of February.
Meanwhile, day 2 of the Occupy NAS protest at the National Assembly saw a shift in participation as members of opposition political parties, including rights activists, continued their advocacy for amendments to Nigeria's Electoral Act ahead of the 2027 general elections. The protesters, who had resumed their protest in the early hours of the day, reiterated calls mandatory electronic transmission of election results, despite the parliament agreeing to electronic results transmission, but with partial amendment.
What's the advantage of transmission, electronic transmission? The advantage that very few persons will die on the election field. Very few Nigerians. You are saving the lives of Nigerians. The current situation you have now is that every election, people are dying in their droves, in their large number. And because people are dying, they don't care. That day, Senator Babi will be in his mansion with police, with army protecting him, while people like us will be on the field. And they are rigging the election. But you know one funny thing? If you think they won't rig, you're wasting time. To stop them from rigging we must come out in large numbers.
And they will be telling you that there are no internet network in 9 states. But there is, listen to this. Yes, sir. There is no state Akpabio goes to in Nigeria that he doesn't find network to connect with his girlfriends.
Exactly.
There is no state that Adams Oshiomhole goes to that he doesn't have network to rub the feet of the Ashawus.
Exactly.
So they have been giving you all these excuses so that Nigeria will not progress in our own time.
Yes.
We are asking for nothing other than for members of the National Assembly to do the needful, to do their job, the same job that they are being paid for, that they have the money to be able to hire private jets and rob feet. And rob feet. Or should I say rob foot? The same way that they have access to wear very expensive watches that every day they are showing us.
Let's now cross to our National Assembly correspondent in Abuja, Sagi Ibrahim, who was at plenary earlier in the day to provide a recap of events as they unfold. Also joining me is a legal practitioner, Libros Oshoma. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Sagi, it's been a very busy day for you. Talk to us about the bone of contention still, even with this seeming listening to the people by the parliament.
Good evening, Felicity. For the National Assembly, the Senate particularly, it was straight-jacketed in the sense that plenary commenced in earnest, I think around 12:32 or thereabouts, and right when the president of the Senate was taking the vote and proceedings of the previous session was when the chief whip of the Senate, Senator Tahir Monguno, had raised the point of order through which he raised a motion to amend he raised the point of order to sort of provide for an amendment to the last decision regarding the particular section of contention, and that clause 60 sub 3, which ought to have provided for a lot of what is causing the rancor, transmission of election results in real time. Now, the amendment that had been put out by the Senate had adopted what was in the previous act of 2022, which had caused for a lot of individuals within and across Nigeria, as well as civil society organizations, to hit the street, expecting that at a time like this, in this century, at least to a large extent, we should be able to provide for electronic transmission of results, but not just that, to also see that the electoral umpire, which is INEC, uses electronic transmission of results as the basis for collation, not just as an option. So Senator Tahir Monguno had raised that point of order to ensure that the previous decision of the Senate be rescinded, first of all, then amended to capture what they feel would be what Nigerians had so yearned for. And so we saw the amendment go on. That amendment went on to mention that there would be a provision of transmission of results electronically. However, with a caveat that should, in case electronic transmission of results is not possible in areas where that's a black spot for whether it's lack of network connectivity or whatever the case, they revert back to collating results manually using the form EC8A form itself. And of course, that raised other concerns because the expectation was that Nigerians were going to see the addition of that real-time clause added to the amendment, but that was not added. Other issues that were raised by many Nigerians who have been watching this issue closely relate also to time frame for the conduct of the elections. It was initially 360 days. We are seeing an amendment that has reduced that to 180 days, but sadly nothing was mentioned around or about the issue of time frame for the election. Now, it was at the phase where the amendment was done that Senator Inaya Abaribe had raised a point of order coming under Order 72, declaring a division and also insisting that the votes be taken by lawmakers individually. Now, the expectation, a rowdy session erupted. What we expected would go on next was to see lawmakers stand up one by one to deliver their individual vote for or against the amendments to the Electoral Act. But sadly, we were not even given an opportunity to do that because shortly after the session was calmed, Senator Yinaya Abaribe withdrew his order. So what we saw then afterwards was a smooth passage of the amendment, after which the plenary continued.
All right, quickly, in 30 seconds, because we need to go to Liberals, do you expect protesters to continue with this? Because it doesn't seem they're satisfied going by the information flying around.
I mean, Felicity, they've started expressing disappointment. The expectations are still very high. A lot of Nigerians do not feel that these lawmakers have scratched the surface of what they had expected to see in terms of amendment of the act of the law. So I wouldn't be surprised if I see Nigerians still hit the street, because I would say that widely, even from interviews granted so far, they seem to not be satisfied. Felicity.
All right, Sergey, thank you very much for the coverage. Do catch your rest after a long day. Let's go now to Liberals. Emergency session was called. One would think it's a response to the protest that has transpired. But there is a proviso to this seeming U-turn. Does the proviso making EC 84 the primary source in cases of transmission failure preserve the manual collation under a different label, as is being said, or this provision is just being proactive, so to say?
You can say to some extent, depending on the side of the pendulum that you're standing, it is convenient to say that there are some places where it will be impossible to transmit results electronically because of network failure in those areas. Like some areas in the Northeast, you can say that, like I said. But at the same time, it depends on what you want to achieve. For some time now, we also see the telcos.
Definition for failure due to communication. How is that defined in law? Who determines what transmission is impossible? And does that discretion create room for abuse, really?
There's no definition. That definition is at the discretion of the electoral umpire. The Act does not define that. And when there is no definition in the Act, just like the Supreme Court has said in interpreting the emergency power of the president as spelled out in Section 305, it says that, the president shall use extraordinary measures. And since extraordinary measures is not defined anywhere in the Constitution, the Supreme Court has said extraordinary measures can mean suspension of a governor duly elected in a democracy, duly elected with the president. So in the same way, when failure to transmit is not defined anywhere, what it means, that's why I asked, if the failure is man-made, if the failure is as a result of a glitch created or frustrations created by, even the umpire or by the actors themselves, what the law says is, once there is a failure, and that failure is not defined. The failure can be genuine, it can be man-made, it can be orchestrated, it can be manipulated, provided there is failure. Failure is failure. So what that means is I can decide to create failure in the entire country and make it impossible for INEC to transmit results electronically. Once that happens, certainly they are going to go manual. But if we were in a society, if we were in a society where there was trust, the people trust the lawmakers, certainly ordinarily this wouldn't be a problem, because to every law there is a proviso, because it is not cast in stone, it is not one straight jacket. There can be unforeseen circumstances. But because of the failure of trust on the side of the lawmakers and on the side of the leaders, and that's why people are saying, you know what, we don't even want a proviso.
All right, quickly, before we go, staying with proviso, if results uploaded to IRF conflict with a manually collected EC8A produced under this condition, Which is more likely to prevail in court based on existing electoral case law?
No, what had happened now is that transmission is now part of the electoral law, unlike before when it was INEC guideline. Now that it is part of the electoral law, if the result is transmitted electronically where it is possible, certainly that result transmitted electronically will take precedence over the manual one, because the law allows for electronic transmission. Unlike before, there was no provision in Electoral Act for that. That was why before then it is the manual from EC8A, and that was why the Supreme Court, Oyetola and INEC said the IREV was just a viewing portal. But now it is no longer just a viewing portal, because the law, section 60(3), has made provision for result to be transmitted to it. If all results are transmitted to it successfully and there is no glitch, then certainly you don't need manual from EC8A. That's what it means, unlike what we had before.
Liberals, thank you very much for speaking with us.
My pleasure.
Coming up, Narendra Usman-led leadership takes over Labour Party National Secretariat. We have details of this and more when we return. Glad you're still with us. The National Caretaker Committee of the Labour Party, led by Narendra Usman, on Tuesday resumed operations at the party's National Secretariat in Abuja. This development follows a federal high court ruling that affirms the leadership of Usman's faction. The presiding judge, Peter Lifu, ruled that evidence before the court shows that the tenure of Julius Abure, the LP national chairman, has elapsed. He also directed the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to recognize the Usman-led wing of the party. To immigration matters, the United States has listed 18 Nigerians for deportation, adding to 79 individuals previously identified, bringing the total to 97. The Department of Homeland Security said the arrests followed a coordinated enforcement operation carried out across multiple states by immigration and customs enforcement officers. Authorities explained that the additional names were included under an expanded nationwide program targeting non-citizens convicted of criminal offenses. The cases involve allegations such as wire fraud, mail fraud, and identity theft, which it linked to financial and security concerns. Adeni Yukunu is an international journalist and policy expert. He joins me now for this conversation. Thank you very much, as always, for obliging us. First, it was 79. Now, an additional 18. How has the United States verified or substantiated these offenses to be so sure some of them are not just being victimized?
Well, I'd like you to understand that when it comes to record, the U.S. is actually very meticulous. And I need to emphasize that the Donald Trump administration has actually been able to demonstrate that when it has, by first of all cleaning up the entire system as the security system. And why have I said this? I've said it because here on record, he has been able to present infallible figures that shows that they have tidied up the data system of the U.S., even if it is not 100%. Has been able to demonstrate capacity in that regard. Now, let nobody make mistakes about it. The West is characteristic of keeping records. And one thing that it does is to even remind you of the things you've said they probably have forgotten. Let me give you an instance to tell you that 8 out of 10 times, these particular allegations are actually correct, because in New York, about a couple months ago, a Nigerian that actually had a citizenship taken to court and yet to be addressed, had put on his record that he came out of here because he came out of Nigeria to the US years ago because his family members were killed. Now, when he turned 50 or 55, he celebrated and he wrote a book in which he said he wants to thank his mother who was still in the village. And when those in the Homeland Security actually went through that material, that found out that the record you gave us when you came here from asylum to, of course, permanent residency and citizenship was that you were attacked and your parents were killed. The man is still in detention and they're still looking at this case. So the point is, when it comes to record keeping here, it's almost foolproof. And that in itself is something that I've single-handedly been able to realize, because some of the things that I've done in Nigeria in terms of my media work that at times I've forgotten were pulled up in the course of trying to get into some of the systems. And I was surprised that some of the work I've done like 10, 15 years ago were actually pulled up and showed to me that this is you, we know. So I do not think that those people who are set to be in Nigeria within the next 24, 48 hours are accused wrongly. And it is why we oftentimes recommend that when you come into another country, the best thing you could do is to represent your country rightly. So the U.S. is wrong for that particular decision it has made.
All right. One would have thought that the U.S., I mean, considering all we've heard, there's improved diplomatic relationship with Nigeria, would have coordinated with Nigerian authorities to facilitate the deportation process. So what would be an ideal response, in your thinking, from Nigerian authorities to this deportation?
I think that if you're talking about wire fraud, mail fraud, and of course, identity theft, it is something that characterizes, many developed countries of the world, and it's not a crime peculiar to Nigeria. But when there are infallible proof presented before your government that shows that the people of your country have committed these crimes, the best way to respond is to perhaps still look into your own book to see if at all such a thing is being motivated by the fact that your country has not made the right provision for these people who have the capacity to understand the dynamics of information communication technology, but have resorted to crimes with it. Then at the same time, anybody who becomes an international fraudster probably has an idea from the home front. So if you have somebody who is studying coding, computer engineering, computer science, and everything related to technology, there is the fact that on the average, such a person understands the dynamics of the internet space and could use it for good or bad. Because every knowledge has the negative side. And there are, of course, ways that people who do noble things can perhaps turn over to start using it for many things that are negative. I have many times advocated that the government should create a lot of coding centers in the country, computer hubs, for people who have capacity to actually do lots of things positively. When those who have capacity are not engaged, and you have to leave them, to their whims and caprices, or the whims and caprices of those that are devious, these are the things we find. So there is nothing Nigeria can do right now to counter what the U.S. has done, because these are facts brought before you, and these people definitely are going to be returned to your country. So I think it's to eat the humble pie and say, okay, what are we able to do with these people? Let me tell you one of the things that I found out. There are lots of things that I've realized here, that the worst of the worst who is very knowledgeable in this country eventually gets employed by the state to help catch criminals. So what is the potential for the people who have been arrested and are to be deported is to first of all realize that they have capacity to do damage as far as the internet space is concerned. So as they're coming back into the country, the government should take them in and first of all look at their capacities. They will serve their time, but government should deploy them to be able to deal with internet fraudster problem in Nigeria, because they have the knowledge of it as well.
That would be tricky, really, because we are having arguments about repentant terrorists, and then you have people who are deported for crime being... that's a whole lot of conversation for another day. But I'll just give you like 20 seconds, please, to just quickly round off your thoughts on that.
I need to say that when people are in the business of taking lives and destroying people, it's not parallel analysis. The people who kill, the people who destroy, like Fulani militias, Boko Haram, ISIS, and ISWAP, they are killers who take lives. But it is important to understand that what is the use of a killer in a country where government wants to negotiate, but they still kill people? There's no use for such people. Non-state actors like that should be destroyed altogether. But when you are talking about those who are into internet fraudsters, that is actually a problem in the country. And one thing that can be done to deal with it is to actually keep them where you understand the extent they could go and use them as tools to deal with the fraudster.
All right. We'll just have to leave it there. Yeah, we'll have to leave it there
right.
for now. Thank you so much for speaking with us. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Still ahead, gunfire rocks Guinea prison after transfer of infamous inmate Diakite. Details shortly. Glad you're still with us. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde have held separate private meetings with former military President Ibrahim Babangida in Minna, Niger State. The engagements took place at Babangida's Hilltop residence on Tuesday, with both politicians meeting the elder statesman independently. Atiku, a chieftain of the African Democratic Party, raised concerns over the amended electoral bill recently passed by the Senate immediately after the meeting. He urged political parties and citizens to scrutinize the legislation through lawful means. Senate President Godswill Akpabio has welcomed a Court of Appeal judgment affirming the upper chamber's authority to discipline its members. Speaking on Tuesday, Akpabio described the verdict as a landmark decision, congratulating the Senate for upholding its rules. He said the ruling confirmed the suspension of Kogi Central Senator Natasha Akpotu-Duanga, citing her very unruly behavior in the chamber. According to Akpabio, the judgment reinforces that the Senate standing orders are distinct from the Nigerian Constitution and must always be respected. Witnesses in the trial of 11 suspects charged with the murder of Arise News journalist Somtochukwu Maduago, popularly known as Somi, have failed to identify any of the defendants. Two prosecution witnesses appearing as PW1 and PW2 who testified in open court narrated how masked assailants invaded the unique apartment in Katagbe district on the unfortunate day in the early hours of the morning, disposing the residents of valuables and while later fleeing the scene. After hearing their testimonies, the trial judge adjourned proceedings to February the 12th for the continuation of trial. The second defendant at the ongoing trial of 5 suspects accused of the 2022 St. Francis Catholic Church massacre has identified in court as one of the gunmen who attacked the church. This was by an officer of the Amotekun Region Security Corps, appearing as a witness with code name SSG. He informed the Federal High Court how he engaged the attackers involved in the 2022 Owo Church massacre in a gun battle. The court also heard medical evidence from a pathologist who conducted post-mortem examinations on the victims, confirming multiple gunshot injuries as a cause of death.
It went very well. Today was to continue the hearing, and we fielded 2 witnesses, and it's been adjourned to tomorrow. Like I've always said, the court graciously granted us accelerated hearing, and that's why we came today and we're coming tomorrow. We are looking at between 4 and 5. We cannot be specific now because as the case is going on, it could make us to bring additional witness other than what we had planned to bring, or we may also reduce.
No, it is the normal thing. They brought their witness and we cross-examine him. We are waiting for the next witness tomorrow. It's the normal thing. Don't worry, it's the 5 people, the 5 defendants. That is all. That is all.
It was a convergence of family, friends at International Conference Center in Abuja as renowned professional Matthew Tolanga marked his 50th birthday with a public presentation of his new book titled Forge in the Greeks. The event, which doubled as a celebration of life and legacy, highlighted themes of resilience, mentorship, and purposeful living. Our correspondent, Blessing Aigbe, reports.
The atmosphere was one of reflection and celebration as guests gathered to honor 5 decades of impact by Matthew Tolanga, whose journey, according to participants, has been defined by discipline, faith, and service. Friends and well-wishers say the book, Forged in the Creeks, chronicles lessons drawn from years of personal and professional experiences, offering insights into character formation and leadership in a changing world.
From day one, you had a vision for your community and a vision for yourself. And through determination and hard work, you'll be able to achieve that.
Matthew has done us proud. For anybody who comes from the Niger Delta, just seeing what he has been able to do to bring so many people together, just as an expression of his generosity, his fortitude, his business acumen, and just that never say no attitude.
At 50, he's been able to do so much. If you look around at the caliber of people, the quality of people that have actually honored him today, you know the kind of person he is. So I wish him more life, more progress. Whatever he's achieved this first 50 years, God will double and triple it this next 50 years.
I was very pleased to share this fantastic event on the occasion of the 50th birthday of Mr. Matthew Tongala, and really a fantastic show and a great book that I'm really looking forward to read very soon, because the story of his life, his achievements have just been fantastic.
Guests at the event say the book is both a personal memoir and a guide, particularly for young people navigating leadership, career, and life decisions.
Your life as a person, especially from a disadvantaged area like the Niger Delta that I also come from, your life has taught us a lesson. And
this is a story of risk and reward, of courage and conquest. It is a story worth telling.
For Nigerians, just believe that there is nothing that is impossible. There is no height that we cannot get to. There is no depth we cannot get to. Everywhere that we go, as Nigerians, we always confess.
The life story of Matthew Tongala is that everything is possible when you have the strength, the resilience, and the ambition to grow.
As Matthew Tongala marks his 50th year, participants say the book, Forged in the Creeks, reflects a life of impact, discipline, and service, while serving as a guide for purposeful leadership and personal growth.
Away from Nigeria for a bit, gunfire erupted near Conakry's Central Prison on Tuesday as authorities transferred notorious inmate Abubakar Siddiqui Daikite, also known as Tomba Daikite, prosecutors confirmed. Witnesses and journalists reported automatic gunfire near the facility, prompting heavy security, including armored vehicles and ambulances. He is serving a 10-year sentence for his role in the 2009 stadium massacre, where 156 people were killed and at least 109 women were raped by forces under then dictator Muassa Dadis Camara. Indian Youth Congress members have held a protest in New Delhi demanding action and accountability over the Epstein Files controversy, which allegedly names Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The protesters, led by their president, shouted slogans and held placards drawing attention to alleged links between Modi and Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted sex offender. The protest highlighted rising youth concerns about transparency and governance, sending shockwaves across political circles. The Indian government has dismissed the allegations as trashy ruminations by a convicted criminal. We'll be back with business, sports, and entertainment news. Do stay with us.
We talk business now. The Port Harcourt refining company rehabilitation is about 90% complete. This is according to the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, noting that the facility could resume processing within a week if the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited gives the go-ahead. Restarting the refinery is expected to boost domestic fuel supply, cut heavy import dependence, and ease pressure on foreign exchange. In the Horn of Africa nation, Kenya's cabinet has approved a 47 trillion shilling national budget for the 2026-2027 fiscal year, with 4.957 trillion shillings allocated directly to county governments. The budget aims to fund devolved functions, including health, agriculture, infrastructure, and social services. Officials said the allocations reflect efforts to strengthen local delivery and promote balanced regional development. The budgets will now be tabled before Parliament for approval. And about the stock market, it extended its rally with confidence as the All-Share Index advanced 1.65% to 176,809.42 points, pushing total market capitalization to 113.49 trillion naira. Now we see the broad-based buying powered session with strength clearly visible in cyclical and capital-heavy sectors. What do I mean? Looking at the sectoral performance, banking industry gained 1.83% as renewed interest returned to Tier 1 names, signaling some sort of growth risk appetite. Insurance was largely up by 0.01% anyway, reflecting cautious positioning across the sector. We see that oil and gas stood at 2.97%, driven by aggressive accumulation in upstream and marketing stocks. Consumer goods inched higher, 0.81% right there, supported by selective demand. And industrial goods rose 2.93% as cement majors attracted steady inflows. That's it on business. I am Lekon Obanjo.
Hello and welcome to sports. Now, the torch relay for the second Niger Delta Games continued on Tuesday as the symbolic flame arrived in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State amidst a colorful procession of athletes and sports officials. The games, scheduled to hold in Edo State from February the 20th to the 27th, is featuring the Torch Tour as part of its build-up of activities across the 9 Niger Delta states. The torch, which began its journey in Calabar on the 9th of February, was led through the major streets in Uyo by Commonwealth Games bronze medalist Young Umofia, alongside current and former state athletes. Officials highlighted the games as a platform for unity, peace, and talent discovery beyond the region's oil wealth. After the ceremony, the torch was handed over to Abia State, the next destination, as preparations intensify ahead of the opening ceremony in Benin City. Meanwhile, the National Sports Commission has inaugurated the local organizing committee for the African Youth Games in Abuja 2027, marking a key milestone in Nigeria's preparations for the continental event. The 28-member committee has been tasked with planning and delivering a landmark edition of the Youth Games following Nigeria's successful bid to host the competition. Nigeria secured the hosting rights during the Anoka executive session in Algeria, defeating bids from South Africa and Kenya. The committee is chaired by Lekon Abari, with Abdulmumin Shagaya appointed as secretary and Barrister Musa Amadu serving as deputy chairman. Members were drawn from the Nigerian Olympic Committee, National Institute of Sports, and the School Sports Federation, with early focus on infrastructure, security, and partnership frameworks. The National Sports Commission has released over 200 million naira in training grants to 26 Nigerian athletes as preparations intensify for the 2026 Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, Scotland. Now, the funding disbursed through the NSC's Elite and Podium Board is targeted at boosting high-performance training for athletes with strong medal prospects. Beneficiaries were selected from both home-based and foreign-based athletes across disciplines, including athletics, wrestling, weightlifting, taekwondo, powerlifting, and parasport. Now, the initiative reflects a renewed focus on athlete welfare and structured preparation for major international competitions. The grants follow a rigorous evaluation process and mark the second major funding intervention by the NSC within 6 months, underscoring its efforts to strengthen Nigeria's competitiveness on the global stage. To football now, Abdul Maikaiba has stepped down as technical advisor of Nigeria Premier Football League side Wiki Tourists, citing safety concerns and internal divisions within the club. The resignation, confirmed on Monday, followed reports of threats to his life and growing disunity among stakeholders that hampered the team's objectives. Maikaiba, who submitted his resignation letter dated February the 9th to the club's management in Bauchi, had recently been reappointed to help guide Wiki Tourists back to the top tier of Nigerian football. His exit comes at a critical stage of the season, with the club struggling for stability. Wiki Tourists currently sit 15th on the MPFL log with 29 points from 25 matches. The development raises fresh concerns about the club's direction and prospects for the remainder of the season. And that's all on sports tonight. Entertainment is up next with Sam Dandy.
And now in entertainment, Nigerian Grammy-winning singer Tems has become the first African female artist to score 7 entries on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100 chart. Now it's marking a new milestone for African musicians in the global mainstream. Her latest entry, What You Need, debuted on the Hot 100, bringing her total to 7, tying her with African giant Burna Boy for the most entries by an African artist, and building on her history of international chart success, including her first #1 debut with Wait For You with Future and Drake. Now, out of Africa, British singer-songwriter Olivia Dean is riding the momentum of her Best New Artist Grammy win. Her single, Man I Need, climbed to #2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and sees major boosting, streaming, and airplay. Now, with her album, The Art of Loving, topping charts and wins leading to significant streaming gains, Dean's rise underscores her breakthrough impact in 2026, earning both critical acclaim and commercial success. I guess that's why everyone wants a Grammy, but fantastic work. Those are the biggest stories in entertainment. I am Sam Dandy.
And that's the news tonight. But before we go, a quick recap of our major stories. Following mass protests, Senate reversed decision to approve electronic transmission of election results. U.S. has added 18 more Nigerians to deportation roll, bringing total number marked for removal to 97 over alleged immigration offenses. We also told you that protests have erupted in New Delhi as Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is named in documents linked to Jeffrey Epstein files. Do send us your eyewitness report and share your thoughts on our programming. Do that with the number on your screen. Would appreciate a follow on social media platforms at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube. Thank you for watching. Good night.